Moonfall? I feel like
In 20,
I feel like we should just charge extra for people to like listen to us talk about random stuff before we actually go live. What do you think? Like,
yeah. All right, guys, I'm gonna read for you.
Two
a movie
times the
trailer that
price.
looks interesting.
Two times the
Moonfall.
price. You get to listen to us
Moonfall.
talking before we go live. How's that sound? Yeah.
Double the merriment. In Moonfall, a mysterious force knocks the moon from its
Ooh,
orbit
yes!
around Earth and sends it hurtling on a collision course with life. As
I
we
saw
know
this
it.
preview.
With mere weeks before impact and the world on the brink of annihilation, NASA executive and former astronaut, something, is convinced she has the key to saving Sol.
This is
Looks
this
kinda
is
good,
the
dude.
2022 version of Deep Impact.
Oh, fascinating thought there, because instead of it being
Yeah.
an
If it gets
asteroid,
to
it's
the
an actual
end and the
moon.
dad has to like blow the thing up and the daughter's crying and all that kind of stuff, just so you guys know, the movie's already been done and it was basically Die Hard in space. That's what it was. Like,
But from the trailer, it looked like there's some ET situation going
well,
on
no.
there as well.
Yeah. So the moon is a monster.
Oh,
Yes,
the moon.
The
is
moon
alive.
is
You
gonna
think?
attack Earth. That's the thing. Yeah. So the
Oh,
preview,
fascinating.
the
But it's made
preview
of
was in
cheese.
Spider-Man, which we were just talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even joking. I said this, and if my dad hears this, I don't even know if he's here. He's currently residing in Texas, so who knows? I said to John, who was sitting next to me, I said, hands down, my dad is going to probably own this movie. It goes along with all the other movies he watches, and it's
Like every other
this
movie
this
in the
this
world.
movie's going to fall into a category that I've been trying to teach my kids about, and it's a genre of its own. It's when movies are so bad that they're good.
You know, it'll be interesting to see if. So, for those of you that don't know, Corky, Jordan's dad, is a movie connoisseur, which I really love and respect that about him.
But he's
And
not very
he
picky.
has a massive library
Right.
of movies, right, and DVDs in particular. I'm sure he has a lot of VHS, but mostly DVDs.
I don't think he does anymore. I think he got them.
what I recall.
think he got rid of. Maybe he does. I don't know.
Okay, so mostly
Not that
DVDs. But what's interesting to me is that what's interesting to me, I am curious if they're going to phase out DVDs. Like, are DVDs not going to be produced in the future? Because there's not that much demand
Yeah.
comparatively, right, with all the streaming platforms now.
It's a good question.
So I will be interested to see if DVDs will become a thing of the past and no longer even really accessible. And I mean, when you look at a lot of laptops now don't have CD-ROMs
That's just
either,
because
right?
the primary purpose of a DVD drive or CD drive on a laptop is not to watch movies. It's for data transfer. And those things transfer really slow and don't hold a lot. So
Now, one area where DVDs still have a hold on media consumption is in vehicles. A lot of DVDs,
Yeah,
a lot
but
of
even
like
them,
parents
a lot of
like
those
to
have
use DVDs.
USB drives now.
Right, you could play it through like your iPad.
No, but I mean,
or-
like some of them have like USB memory.
Yeah, but that's not as user friendly, I would
True.
say, compared to like CDs.
Yeah.
You know.
But most kids have
anyways,
iPads
interesting.
or
Well,
a phone or something that they can watch.
Guys, true. Welcome back to
Yeah, we
Tips
haven't even
Normal,
gotten to
episode
that part yet.
127.
27.
Yeah. Well, as usual, we are starting off our episodes with some TILs. And I am coming in hot with 3 TILs. I believe Jordan has 2.
It's
So
true.
I
have
will
double the amount
initiate
that I normally have.
the
but I like them,
TILs.
so
My son and I really enjoy playing some checkers and some chess every now and then together. And today I learned that in checkers, it is actually by the national accepted rules mandatory to jump your opponent's piece.
yeah, you didn't know that.
can.
You cannot
not.
choose not to.
I didn't know it was mandatory to do so,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Okay, so today I learned, literally today, that in 1895, a swarm of Rocky Mountain locusts measuring 1,800 miles long and 110 miles wide blocked out the sun for 5 days. 30 years later, that locust was extinct. Was that one of yours? It wasn't in there when I
Yes.
put mine in, so.
Yes, it was so
It's
good.
like,
That's such a good statistic. So I
what?
just want to give you guys a little bit of analysis. That is
Is
that
it's
length, that
insanity.
distance of locust is basically from here, from Oregon, from the West Coast
Yeah.
to
It's
Missouri.
over half the United States.
That's almost the length
yeah.
of from here to Missouri. How
Yeah.
bonkers is that length? Like
Well, when I drove from
you
when we
can't even
drove
comprehend
from
it.
Georgia to here by car, obviously, but pretty. I mean, it's not like a lot of deviation. It was about 2,800 miles. So,
Yeah.
2/3.
So 2/3, almost 2/3.
That's nuts.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And yeah, and that was in 1895. So like that really was not. I mean, it was a while ago, but it was within recorded history, so they're pretty accurate with that, which is wild. Today I learned that 75 to 80% of olive oil sold in the United States today is adulterated, including major brands. They associate that with organized crime profit margins on adulterated olive oil and it's 3 times that of cocaine. So the profit that organized crime gets with mixing adulterating oil is 3 times the profit that organized crime is getting
And it's
with
really,
cocaine.
it's not good for
Which is
you either.
bonkers.
That's the thing.
No, well, what they're doing is they're actually mixing the olive oil with vegetable oil. They're disguising it with vegetable oil, and then they're adding coloring and a particular aroma. And
There's
then
a way
that's
you can test it. I
facilitating
can't remember
a,
that you can see
mixture.
whether or not it's legit. But I can't remember how.
Well, but I mean, it's wild to think that you see this, it says extra virgin olive oil from Italy. And actually, that's the other scam that's going on. Majority of olive oil that says from Italy is actually not from Italy.
They just flew
They're
through
finding
there.
out too.
Just was visiting. Was a tourist.
Yeah, visiting. A quick little jaunt.
The food in the United States makes me mad. We need to talk about a spot where I would be okay with a crap ton more regulation. Right there, folks.
That's an interesting one for sure.
Because I think
it's interesting.
I think it's important. I mean, it's what people.
Yeah, I've mixed feelings about regulation.
Well, around food,
it's interesting.
Labeling it as food. Like, if someone wants to sell it, fine, but sell it at the hardware store instead.
Yeah, that's true. Or have late warnings maybe.
I'm giving up watching Alaska, The Last Frontier, to listen to you guys. Megan, oh my gosh, says 33% of honey isn't legit either.
Oh, no
Dang.
kidding. Wow.
I don't know if I like that either.
Interesting. Okay. That makes me really sad. So I wonder, I guess they're mixing it with like
Here's the thing. It's like how many bees are going without jobs? Think about that. If we're all about job creation, like we're stealing jobs from bees. I feel like Jerry Seinfeld made a movie about this. Okay. Today I learned in 1816, a volcanic event led to what is known as the Year Without a Summer, originating an agricultural disaster. The lack of horse food inspired Carl Dreis to research new ways of horseless transportation, leading to the invention of the velocipede, a step towards mechanized personal transport. That is just a fancy word for the bicycle.
Oh my gosh. Velocipede, yeah, because it's pedal.
Right.
But
some of the first ones are like on train tracks and stuff like that. But
fascinating.
Anyway, so like, yeah, it led to that because they didn't have enough to produce food for the horses. So the horses were either dying or just didn't have the energy to move around a lot. Bad year to be a horse.
That's fascinating. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rabbit trail here for you guys. And I apologize in advance, but it's an interesting analysis that I heard recently. And it has to do with technology, how it's somewhat affecting our culture and our media platforms.
You have me. You have my attention.
Okay. So I was listening to a speaker. You guys probably haven't heard of him. He's kind of obscure. His name's Jordan Peterson.
Never heard of him.
Probably nobody's heard. Anyhow, so he was talking about the current state of our media and how there's just really poor reporting and poor standards across all extremes, whether it's conservative, whether it's liberal, whether it's, supposedly mid ground. Like there's just a lot of fat rather than meat in the news these days. And talking about a big portion of that is the way we've implemented technology and how it's kind of created a decrease in the monopoly that big media platforms previously had. So such as we used to have, the only way a good reporter could get their message across is if they worked for a big network, right? Or if they worked for a big media platform, a big news company. But now we have these situations where a news company might have a good reporter, but if something sketchy happens in that company, there's nothing that makes them have to stay there, because they could create a blog, they could go out and have an independent news company, Vice or something on their own, and just report on YouTube. YouTube's a great example of that. Even though there is certain regulations and some sketchy stuff YouTube does, they still have created an enormous platform for so many people. So we have these massive news organizations that are trying to fill this void with kind of like just garbage, right? Because they don't have the same reporting capacity, the same critical thinkers that they used to have, or at least not the same monopoly on those individuals that they used to have. And so that's actually contributing a lot to this void we see with our major legacy
when they're just told what to
platforms.
say instead of actually researching it. They're just fed information to just say. I mean, we have evidence of that on both sides. Like, I don't think it's only on one side. But then that people are hungry for like good reporting and like even actually just good news. We saw like what was at the beginning of like the whole COVID debacle that John Krasinski and his wife started, like Just Good News or whatever. Like they just drew on a board and they were like, people just need to hear good news, and so they did that. He ended up selling that for millions to a network in the end when he was like, I got to go back to work, and he sold the idea. But they had more viewership than most news stations. And we have YouTubers that just read memes, right? And to some degree that's news, right? Because that's kind of, it's culture news. It's what groupthink is kind of doing at that moment, right? And you have like people like PewDiePie. He'll turn on his stream and he'll have a million viewers. Like that's more than
I heard a really
CNN
interesting
gets. CNN
statistic
on the weekend gets maybe 50,000 concurrent viewers.
Right, which is far less than many YouTubers, right?
Bonkers less.
I heard an interesting statistic actually. It's called, or a study that was done, and it's called that led to this principle. It's called the Prevo principle, or Preva principle.
We'll go with that.
And if you take the square root of any creative enterprise or organization like a media company or a platform or anything like that, and you take the square root of the number of workers they have, that square root typically does half of the critical job of the entire company. So if you have 1,000 employees, right? You take the square root of that. Essentially,
10.
You have, what is it, 30? You have 30,
1,000?
basically. No.
Oh.
Yeah, square root of 1,000's 31 or close to 30. So if you take the square root of that, you have 30 people basically that are doing the entire job for that entire company.
31.6. I can't believe you're so far off.
Yeah. Whatever. I said 30. I said 31 after that.
Jeez. I can't believe you didn't get it down to down to at least the first decimal, because it's technically it's 31.62277666017. You didn't know that?
So, but I was way closer than 10.
I was thinking 100.
But
and I would have been right. But we weren't working with 100.
No. But anyways, that's really fascinating when you have a company like that, though, and you have a small number of people that are making the major contribution. So when you look at these media legacy platforms and you lose just a couple people, that makes a big impact on the quality of your product. So that was something I just wanted to get a little soapbox. I wanted to just talk about with media, and that's a fascinating thing that.
And I think that kind of, the decent point to bring up with that is that their journalism is sort of dead, and so people they look for the headline, not for the information. I heard a guy say once the best way to read an article, if it's from mainstream media, is if you read the headline, it's what they want you to think. And if you read the end of it, it's kind of what they think. And then if you read the middle, there's maybe some actual information.
I would counter that with saying
mainstream is
reporting.
It's so fast. It's just like, well, I mean,
dead.
yes, I would agree. But journalism, that art, is mostly dead. Like, people, you're not required to do it anymore to be in the news. And you don't even have to think. Like, I don't know how many times I've like heard the news. Like, it's really obvious when it hits like your area of expertise, right? So like you hear them talk about technology and you're like, my goodness, if they got that wrong, what else are they getting wrong? You know, there's the age old video. If you could go find it, when they're talking about email when it first came out, and it sounds like, I even knew at the time what email was. And it sounds as though they are talking about an alien race. Like, that's how little they know about it. And it's like, why are these people even sitting around talking about this? Like,
right. Katie Couric.
They're like, what is that? The @ sign? Like, and just goes through all this stuff. It's like, what? And then they try to explain what email is and everything. It's like, what are you even doing? I mean, they may as well just be trying to tell us how to do brain surgery with using, like Speak and Spell or something. Like, it's that bad. And you got to think it's probably that bad for just about every subject they cover.
Yeah, it is a very
we need the Ron Burgundys in this world back.
Evolution. Well, but you know what's also interesting is we don't have the same, because we have such a distribution of information in so many different platforms, right? We don't have the same level of individuals that are taking on the responsibility of being a source of truth. I feel like we have those, but it doesn't carry the same necessity to be purely objective.
I think that's what scares people. Like, you and I are having this conversation about a website I sent you that tracks, JRE or Joe Rogan's podcast getting removed live. You can go see the ones that are being removed for whatever reason. Like you were saying that some of them were when he used the N word, but he wasn't using an derogatory word. He was using it actually in conversation, talking through why it's wrong, like how it got there and all that. Like, I've heard that conversation he had. And while it's an awkward one, it's like not a bad conversation to have. Like, people should have those conversations. He knows you shouldn't go around saying it or calling people that. But to like censor that conversation removes thought, And so, but I think going to this though,
the conversation itself
is that they're scared of people like him because he gets way more listeners. I would bet money he gets more listeners than every mainstream news organization combined.
Yeah,
or at
I
least
would say
real dang close.
I would say on, if you look at all of his platforms as a whole, like the JRE clips and his podcasts and his YouTubes, I think that
I bet he gets more just on one
thing.
I'm
going back to
one episode though. Like, if it's like a mainstream, like a good episode with, a decent guest, not just like comedians.
Going back to his podcast. And so the first thing, this is kind of beating a dead horse a little bit. Everybody's probably heard about this on the news a bunch, but Joe Rogan's first kind of cancel culture situation that occurred was his commentary on COVID and policies and the guests that he had on and the opinions that he had. There was concern about him spreading misinformation. And a lot of people actually from both extremes, actually conservative as well as liberal, were backing him up, saying, hey, he should have the freedom of speech. He should have the ability to voice his opinion. And he actually did show kind of bipartisan opinions from multiple representations of different sides of this situation. So that actually he did. I was actually kind of impressed by that backing that he received. Trevor Noah was one that he released a video. Dwayne The Rock, released a video or comments on it.
It is weird who he gets support from.
But then he got support from a pretty broad spectrum, I think, in that situation. Then there was the situation where he actually acknowledged where he does not believe it's appropriate for him to even use that word now, even on his podcasts.
Right.
Like even current day, he said, hey, I don't think this using the N word is something that I should be saying or I have the privilege or right to be saying. And so he acknowledged that and he apologized for that. But he also acknowledged that at the time when he was saying those things 20 years ago, or not 20 years ago, but maybe like 10, it was probably close to 10, it didn't have the same cultural stigma in the respect of him not calling somebody, but him acknowledging this is a sensitive word and we're talking about this word and how crazy is this specific word, right? So I do think he acknowledges that it's not something he should be saying out of in or out of context, but it's an interesting thing because amongst all of this cancel culture that's going for his podcast right now, it's fascinating that that Spotify, that the platform for Spotify, I was impressed by what they did. They're making, how much advertising are they getting from this?
Buckets.
Every single, article.
I bet if they weren't
Spotify,
making money,
right?
we all know that he'd been removed a long time ago, because people who talk about the same exact things, more tame than him, have been removed from Spotify. So,
right, absolutely. But what I do like about Spotify and what I appreciate is they're saying that there's a ton of crap that Joe Rogan says that I don't agree with, and there's a ton of crap that a lot of people say that I don't agree with. Right?
You can say me. I don't care.
But what I like is Spotify acknowledges the fact that you don't counter or beat bad speech by canceling or by blocking somebody. You do it by having better speech, and you do it by having conversations that you explain how and why your argument is.
And here's the counter to that too. Is you can't just say the argument to other people can't just be, well, you don't have an education, or, well, no, you don't know. You actually have to present evidence, and know what you're talking about.
Well, because here's the thing.
Both sides, by the way. I'm not saying one side.
When you cancel someone from being able to speak, the situation arises where eventually you will be canceled from being able to speak. And then if you're trying to get your point across...
And how are we supposed to make fun of you if you can't talk anymore?
You're not going to make anything better.
How are those of us that don't agree with you supposed to laugh at you for sounding like that?
Yeah. So the more you cancel communication, the more fascist your state becomes, the more risk you have of causing more separation and more division and more risk of harm.
I was looking for an image here to show people. This is delightful and hilarious. But everyone was like, I'm going to cancel. Neil Young was one of the ones that said, I'm removing myself from Spotify if you don't remove Joe Rogan. Did you hear about this? And
yes. I don't really know.
Well, here's the picture I was looking for. Neil Young fans trying to delete Spotify. They got rid of him so fast.
That's funny. That's hilarious. So it's an old lady holding an old mobile phone. It's like a brick.
The old brick phones.
Large one. So changing subjects a little bit, did you hear the article about Jeff Bezos and what's been going on in relation to his mega yacht that he was building?
I didn't hear it. I read a headline.
Okay.
You asked if I. Sorry,
this Dutch city.
You asked if I heard the.
Well, you could have heard about it. It could have been like something you listened to.
It didn't. Neither one.
In Rotterdam, which is like in Denmark, I guess. Jeff Bezos was having a mega yacht created for him,
as you would.
But one would, of course. But for some reason, his mega yacht was 417 foot long, and it was too tall to go underneath the bridge that was behind the company, or was passed downriver from the company that created the yacht.
You've got to ask yourself.
He was petitioning.
Why did they build the boat?
You got to wonder, right?
without measuring that
Hey,
first.
So he was petitioning. He was petitioning the city and the local, government, saying, "Hey, will you dismantle this historic bridge to allow my super yacht to pass through?" And the people of Denmark or this area are like protesting significantly, and they're saying, "Hey, heck no!" So now 3,000 people have like so far like signed up, and there are more that are continuing to sign up to vow to go to the bridge, and as soon as the yacht gets close to the bridge, they're going to start
What in the
throwing
world?
eggs
Okay,
at the
so
mega yacht. And so
number
there's going to be
one, like-
thousands and thousands
like
of
looking at
people
this picture,
egging.
right? It doesn't look that historic, does it?
Well, no, the bridge. So that bridge, but then that's a bridge you're on right there. So they're taking a photo. So do you see the concrete?
Oh, the
bridge
one
right
they're
there?
on. But no,
Yes.
it looks like this is the
So
lift
it's like
bridge.
that's for the train,
oh.
right?
Then
But
why
this
is the
one
lift
lives in a
bridge there
different
if there isn't some other type of lift on this one? That's what I'm.
I don't know. I think this
Maybe
one
it's-
goes.
maybe
up
just-
to a
maybe it's
different
not
area.
wide enough.
I don't actually know.
Maybe that's what it is. Because that doesn't look that wide. Like if it's a, I mean, we're thinking
be.
Jeff Bezos here. Also, let's just like take a moment to wonder if Jeff Bezos is trying to go to space. Why is he worrying about water right now? Like why build
The
a
guy needs to
build a
relax. The man needs
space
to relax. Okay.
station or something?
Oh my gosh. What I will say is now they are saying the number of people committing to this event are up to 13 or 14,000 now.
You didn't end
So
with 1,000 on that. It was like,
can you imagine
we're up to 13 or
14,000
14
throwing
people
eggs?
who are going to come and do this. They're all going to wear wooden shoes.
Can you imagine 14,000
They're going to
people
clack down there
all at once? That's so many eggs.
and throw eggs. And no, that's a random thing. Why eggs? Why rotten eggs?
They're probably scared of like breaking some type of law, but throwing an egg's not that big of a deal, right?
Listen to this
Maybe.
quote, though.
I don't know.
The
I
quote
don't know.
under the
It's kinda
headline.
interesting.
We don't just take it apart for the phallus symbol of a megalomaniac billionaire, not without a fight. And their idea, guys, for just a moment, let's stop and think for a second. Their idea of a fight is throwing rotten eggs.
But I will say, historically, the Danes or Dutch. I don't know if that's the same thing as Danes.
I think one's,
Anybody out there, correct
that's
me
a
if I'm wrong.
dog, isn't it? Like a
But-
Great Dane.
I don't know if they've ever been known for their fighting.
That's my
prowess.
point. Like they're like, you be prepared
But
for
actually-
a fight,
I will say in MMA,
and then they show up with eggs. Like, I don't know if you
the
know, but
government might not, but their MMA. They
the
have
United
some amazing
States
fighters
is
in
so
MMA.
into fighting that throwing eggs is just a prank here. Like it's not even there. It's an act of war apparently. And here in the United States,
Our kids do this for
we
Halloween.
just do it for fun. We're like, hey, look, here's an egg. And the Dutch are like, whoa, we don't want a war here.
Dude, did you hear about this one? And this is kind of a big deal for everybody out there that's really into flying and likes to torture themselves. The combo, so Frontier Airlines, who's not terrible but not really high end,
They're
and
kind of a step up from Southwest.
Spirit
Yeah.
Airlines and Frontier are now merging to create the fifth largest and possibly worst airline ever.
This is a bad idea. This is a really
This is hilarious. I was reading this article. So, Spirit, for those of you who don't know, Spirit Airlines basically, their logo is less money, more go, but it's really less money, less everything. Like you have to pay. I think you have to pay to get a drink of water. You have to pay, I think, to use the restroom. I can't say if that's true or not. I've heard that. But the degree of of decreased convenience on flying with Spirit and now Frontier.
Yeah,
is
I feel like
kinda
this is
scary.
like combining a horse trailer and a cattle car. Like they're both terrible, and everyone's gonna look. They're gonna be like, "Look at that ass hanging out of the trailer."
Yeah.
My uncle had said a second ago. He said, when you have the money that Bezos has, you can go to space and play, but also need to relax floating in the water. You branch out a little bit.
True. Or maybe he's looking to launch into
He has a good
space
point
from his yacht.
too. Is that I wonder if the eggs hit the boat if they have to repaint it. Maybe that's it. I've heard of bologna doing that, like kids putting bologna on cars in the sun and it rips the paint off.
I've not heard that. That
That's
would
bologna.
be a testament to the healthy aspects of
Well,
bologna, I guess. So
bologna, it's like, what is the stages of meat? It's like, if they can't figure out what it is, then it goes into hot dogs, and what falls on the ground from hot dogs, I think gets made into bologna, and whenever it doesn't make it into the bologna container, I think gets made into Spam.
spam, yeah, I think that's the final call. So the world out there is a big world, and not just within the United States. And something international is currently taking place, and I have not watched a single event pertaining to this situation. Partially out of solidarity for the concentration camps in the country in which the Olympics is taking place. But I'm trying to CCP. Have you seen any events? Have you paid attention to this at all? Have you been seeing anything?
I just really don't like China. Like, I like the Chinese people. I think we've been over that quite a bit. But their government, like, are you talking about the facial recognition thing, or
So yeah, there's been,
because there's a few things we have to talk about
to a
here,
degree,
and one of them is the Olympics. This kind of will lead into it, but
yeah,
exactly. This is,
there's been widespread,
so this has been around the kids,
like, censorship
and video games and whatnot.
Yeah, that's different. We'll tie into that. But there's been like widespread censorship, but not only censorship, but there's been significant influence on reporters, and like reporters being like shut down and taken out of events and prohibited from having any type of anything that the CCP doesn't see.
It sounds a little bit familiar, right?
For
like
their media,
just not as harsh here.
It does. It's not surprising. Well, but definitely in that arena, in that area, what doesn't make sense to me is, like, you would think China would want to counter the negative stereotypes that they are receiving, right? And what they're doing is just reinforcing it. In my,
they don't care.
opinion.
They just don't want that out there. They make it illegal to talk against them. I mean,
Did you see that they had in their opening ceremony? I had listened to an article about this. In their opening ceremony, the person that lit the final, large torch, was specifically, like, they labeled it as a Uyghur immigrant or citizen or whatever they would call it. They were like basically saying, look how healthy and happy this is, and this person's going to be in the Olympics. Their people are perfectly fine. But it was like a blatantly obvious,
I will blatantly say,
push to say
I am not okay that we let not only the Olympics be in China. I'm not okay with us allowing China to even compete in the Olympics. I would go on to say, if you don't want me to like just cordon them off a little bit, that I would, that with what happened with the Russia debacle, they also shouldn't be allowed to, at least for a set amount of time, because of the cheating that was going on there.
Yeah.
But they're also like, there's reports coming out of like the quarantine hotels and the crappy conditions and the way that they're treating athletes that are coming from other countries. Here's the deal. Olympic athletes don't make a lot of money, at least most of them, unless they come from some sort of pro sport or sponsorship. But it's not a glamorous life. They actually, most of them do it because they love it. I don't know why they would think it would be safe in the world's current climate to go to that country, or why it would be worth it. I mean, I get it. Like, the Olympics are there. Your country let you down. And I was talking to a friend about this the other day. I was like, the Olympics used to be like this patriotic thing, but when everyone's not really like for it, or for being like okay with what's going on in their country, it's really hard to want to be patriotic about something that we're supposed to come together and be patriotic about. And with that, like, I used to watch Olympics as a kid all the time. I thought it was great. I would be sad when it was every 4 years when I was a kid. And then it went to like every 2 years was summer, winter. And that was great. I loved it. I still would love to watch it. The one gripe that I would have back then was they never really aired the things that were the most interesting. So like when snowboarding came out, it was
Oh yeah.
it was really hard to find that aired. Like it wasn't that popular, at least on the normal. And so be this every
It's
time you
still
went to the
hard.
Winter
A
Olympics,
lot
it
of
was just
events
ice skating, ice
aren't
skating,
easy.
ice skating, ice skating. It was like, I'm sort of done with the ice skating
Yeah.
Olympics. I want to watch the snowboarding, the skiing, and curling. The end. And or I'd settle for the biathlon where they ski and shoot a gun, which I think Russia should just win all the time because they probably have the most Russian snipers that are like winterized. Um, but I used to love the Olympics. Now, because of the state of the world and the countries that I know that are involved in it, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to be a part of it. And I don't follow. I didn't even know it was on yet. Like, did you know it's already started? I didn't know until today.
Yeah, so I knew about it like
but it started on the
think
4th.
it was last week. I could be wrong.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so last week. Yeah, I had heard about it from I was just reading articles about a reporter that was not arrested, but basically had all their stuff taken away from them, and then it was
Yeah,
in
I guess
relation to
I'm so baffled that we
that.
go in and we let these countries run something that's supposed to be like a good competition. I think it's wrong.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is
it's
crazy.
morally wrong.
That is crazy.
I think we should just tell them, sorry, we don't want your 30-year-old
Well,
athletes that are
what
like
I'm
10
surprised
or supposed to
also
be 10.
is there was a athlete, a tennis player. I think we all heard about this like last year. There was a tennis player that was a female tennis player from China, and she had basically like been ghosted by the Chinese government, and nobody in the world could hear from her, could find out where she was at. And I don't actually think I think even still we haven't been able to find her. And she was like, she had said something about the unfair treatment of female athletes within China, and basically like the Chinese Communist Party erased her. And it's like a very unfortunate, but there's been so much potential ammo to say, hey, we need to take a stand against this type of
The thing is, like, you don't even have to like you don't even have to
treated
be
negatively.
like war talk, right? You could just be like, we're sorry, if you are a communist country that has these things going on, you're not allowed to compete on the world stage. The end. Just the free world could say that, and there's not a lot that could be done. Or they could just say, we're going to hold our own,
True.
have fun. And
Yeah.
I honestly, I care, but I if that causes a war, it's the thing. It's like you're saying what they do is okay. And I'm not okay with that.
Right. And that's what's interesting, right? Like we have cancel culture that we have a hard time with, but then we have something like this that we want to cancel a country or a government for the way they're treating their people. But isn't that kind of an interesting
it's wild that we would cancel
bit?
people here for what we do, and we won't tell a country, we're sorry, you're not allowed to be around us.
Right.
Because you're unsafe and you're hurting people.
Exactly.
Like it's backwards. The fact that we would say, like, this person said some dangerous things, we're going to remove their income, everything, they're not allowed to speak, whatever. And then for this, we're like, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So Megan says,
Crazy,
it's not
crazy.
about war. We would lose easy access to cheap conveniences. And here's my proposal. Tell companies right now, starting today, you have 2 years
Great point, Megan.
to move production and exports to somewhere else. You should have already been doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies have already started to do it.
Can I just make a comment about this? Something ironic. My dad actually sent me this today. He was, the government has been mailing people if they request it a free COVID test kit, right? So he had already had a free one, or had a different one that he had received that he bought at like Walgreens or something like that, I think a while ago. And then he got a free one from the government. And the free ones, so the ones that you get from Walgreens, those are made somewhere. Okay. They're made in Maine, okay, Scarborough, Maine. But the ones that he got from the government, that they're called iHealth. Those ones are coincidentally made in China. The government, so our government is paying probably millions, maybe billions of dollars to China for test kits from a
I think
virus
what people
that
forget
originated
too,
from China.
and I totally understand the point of we would lose access to these cheap goods. It's a two-way street. If we all just stepped up and said, we're going to, I mean, everything's rising anyway, shipping's rising anyway, it's all going to cost a little bit more anyway. Then we defund the enemy. It's two birds with one stone. We stop giving money to the enemy. It's like, why would you fund the bully? You stop doing that, and maybe we pay a little bit extra. We already have shelves getting empty anyway, so
it's true. Yeah, it's an interesting. That was an interesting thing, though.
That is weird.
Like, wow, that's.
I thought you were going to say like, and the main one said it was negative, and the China one said he was actually like triple positive.
Oh no. Oh man. The only other thing I wanted to bring up tonight, I thought this was really interesting. In Oregon, maybe you've heard about this. Anybody out there that lives in Oregon or doesn't live in Oregon, I apologize, but it's interesting. Police, there's new legislation that's being proposed, and it looks like it might pass actually. That police can no longer stop drivers for minor violations under this proposed legislation.
We can already have all the drugs and do whatever we want anyway. So
yeah, but this one in particular, I kind of agree with. Like being able to stop somebody because and give them a ticket. So being able to stop and ticket somebody because they have a light bulb out on their
I was
license,
really hoping you said like stopping someone and giving them a ticket just because they're hanging out the window texting, and they're not even speeding, and they're kind of staying in their lane.
Tail light out, or tail brake light, or there's like a crack on one of their headlights. A lot of states,
those are secondary. So there has to be a primary violation, and then those can be a secondary.
And that's not what it is in Oregon.
Right. I'm just saying. I'm saying this legislation is actually not that uncommon. It's a lot of states do that. So
right. But how crazy is that Oregon doesn't have that yet?
I guess the other thing is this, you could see this two ways, right? Maybe this is good, but also it could mean that they're just going to look for a primary violation to pull you over for the secondary violation. So it's like
but they still could ticket you for both.
Right, but they may
currently,
but before
in the future
they may not. And now they may just ticket you for both because they found another primary reason. I don't. Maybe. I'm just trying to see what I said. I don't. The think other it's thing that deal,
this. The other thing that this does is, so I guess currently, and I didn't know this either. In Oregon, currently, officers don't have to ask for consent to search a vehicle, and I've always heard that they had to ask for consent.
I don't think that's right.
But that's what this law is also saying. Like, this is what's crazy. It's saying this law, the officer has to ask for consent to search a vehicle and get that consent in writing or audio. So it has to be written or in video that they actually got consent
that seems
to search the vehicle.
Crane had a good point here. I'll put it up here on the screen. Maybe it's not going to show up. Back to the China thing. This is actually a good point I didn't think of.
Oh yeah.
They have to have imports for actual food to eat and water to drink. 10% water being drinkable is not a great thing for a country. They need us so badly. We have excess food, which is rare. So that's probably why they're buying up our farmland.
Well, and that's interesting too. There was a recent podcast I was listening to, and it was talking about world supply of food resources, right? And China actually has the largest stockpile of anywhere in the world of grain. They have the most grain of anyone, and they've been kind of bottlenecking it, or I don't know if that's the right word, storing it, hoarding it. And I think that they have some time. They know, they recognize their
Right.
dependence
That's why
on
they
other
probably
countries,
have a
right?
stockpile.
And so they are
if
preparing
in
for that.
case that happens. So that's a decent point, though, to think about. And I think that people, like, yeah, we get cheap things from China. Here's the thing. It used to be that Chinese stuff was all just garbage. For the most part, like, most of the knockoff stuff is about as good. I mean, there's some that's really, really bad, let's be real. But a lot of it is decent stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, your brother made up a point, and he said that a version of that previous Oregon law was just passed last year in Washington as well.
So going back to this, man, Josh and my uncle are going back and forth. They have some imports for actual food to eat and water to drink, 10% water. Oh yeah, we already read that. Not to talk about the quality of food. They literally don't buy local food if they can't afford it. My uncle said, I agree with you, Jordan. Oh, thanks. Maybe, but I can tell it's about to end. But a couple points. We are a society that want cheap products. Second, there are now a lot of products that you can only buy outside the U.S. because manufacturers here went out of business or moved to China. Absolutely agree. That's why I said I don't think it should be immediate. I think they should change. Also, I would say a lot of our high tech products, a lot of those companies have already started to pivot to other places. I think because they think this could happen. Like for instance, Apple, if you look at where a lot of their stuff comes from, it's not always out of China anymore. And that's a big deal.
Right. But if you look at those areas that aren't out of China anymore, a lot of those are companies that aren't in China but are owned by China. So like a lot of Indonesian companies are actually owned by China, but
they're in a different country, so they could kind of get around. Anyway, it seems like companies have kind of tried to they're trying to sidestep that and pivot in case that happens. At least that's the way I read when they do it. The real estate guy they're buying, we made comment to this, they're buying up farmlands, but they're replacing it with commercial buildings. That's interesting. They are one of the highest purchasers of farmland here. So anyway, here's the deal. We always end up talking about China. We care about the people.
It's just because it's so relevant.
It affects a lot of stuff. We saw it at the beginning if COVID really was as bad as they said it was going to be, it would have been really, really bad, right? Because we couldn't get what we needed because we relied so heavily on this country that wasn't giving it to us. Why weren't they giving it to us? Well, they either were keeping it for their people or they wanted it to be worse for us. I side with the latter.
And maybe both. I
don't know that. I don't know if they care about their people enough to give it to them. So that's why I side with the latter.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of unknowns too, and so they didn't know exactly how they wanted to handle it.
They were still looking for Ozzy Osbourne. They're like, "Where'd that bat go? Ozzy went that way."
Oh my gosh, throwback! I'm just shocked that guy's still alive.
You know what? Okay, so if you want to read an interesting book, okay, that is one of the few autobiographies I've written or not written. I've read is Ozzy Osbourne's. And I would say you would love it. You would enjoy it. I will entice you. I will entice you with a short snippet of a story that he tells about where he accidentally gives his vicar, would be the pastor that came to his house. His wife accidentally fed him hashish cake, and he thought he killed him. He was missing. He was missing for 2 weeks.
That would be really funny. That's amazing. I love that. That sounds like a really fun story. It sounds so nice.
You will read that and you will come to me and you'll say,
He was missing for 2 weeks. Is that what you said?
You will say to me, I thought before that I was shocked he wasn't dead, and I am now even more shocked that he isn't dead. But it does end actually really well.
That's funny.
I would have never picked it up, but for some reason my boss got it for Christmas one year, and he's like, I read it, and he's like, man, I think you might like this. It ends pretty good, but it's pretty dark in the middle, but he's like, it's very interesting. And so I did. I'm like, holy crap, this is wild. I can't believe he remembered most of it.
That's
So,
awesome.
anyway, that's my book plug for the week. It's been a while since I read it or thought.
Love it. All right, shower thought time, folks.
How many do you have? Yeah, I'll go first because
You want to go first?
I have one more than you. Vampires keep getting into relationships with mortals because they know they'll eventually get their inheritance, which is also how all vampires eventually become wealthy.
That's funny. Yeah, and yeah, there's a lot of funny things that you could say about why a vampire gets into, and they're not stuck
This is
with it
true.
for eternity.
This is true.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
hedging their bets. All right.
Yeah, they're like, "Are you a vampire?"
to.
We can't date. Sorry. Like, yeah.
Sorry. I'm
Next.
not looking for long term. I'm not looking for long term. If you think about it, Antarctica has the highest average level of education of any continent at one time.
Probably.
Probably. I don't
Yeah,
have like.
I mean, they
statistics,
maybe they
but
lowered it. Maybe
would
they're like,
imagine.
we need some really dumb people in case something goes south.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every scientist,
Goes south.
every scientist has
Something
to bring a
goes
normal
south.
person
Boom.
to level it out. Yeah,
They
yeah.
carry their bags.
There's a Sherpa, like, but whatever they would call them in Antarctica, and I don't. Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
Children think adults have all the freedom, and adults think children have all the freedom.
Yeah. Right? They both have freedom in totally different ways, though. Yeah. It's good. All right. This is kind of a little bit longer, but not too long. And some people could argue it, but I think it has some validity to it. Captain Hook is only going after Peter Pan because he's trying to stop him from kidnapping any more kids. But everybody else sees it as him being a bad guy because Captain Hook never goes after any of the kids, only after Peter Pan. Now, the counter to this is if you watch Hook, the movie Hook, Hook kidnaps the kids and brings them to Neverland. But that's only in an attempt to capture Peter Pan.
So it's okay that he kidnapped the kids if it's to get Peter Pan.
It's like it's using fire to fight fire.
It's like one step further. It's like causing a fire that you want to use fire to fix.
Yeah, it's using fire. It's like a backline or backfire, right?
But also you started the fire.
Fascinating. Fascinating thought. Yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. We don't know the origin stories, or I don't.
Josh says, Captain Hook is afraid of his mortality, hence the clock, and is jealous of the mortality of Peter. That's way too deep.
Seems like Captain Hook.
Yeah. Well, no, time is always chasing him. That's the alligator. The tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Yeah. This is way too deep.
But wait, I thought nobody ages in Neverland.
I don't know. He's old. He seems pretty upset about it.
Right.
Yeah. That's
maybe he got there late.
I mean, he lost a hand, so maybe he could die. I don't know.
Well, no. I said nobody ages, but you could still die.
True.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a scientist.
I'm not like an expert in pixie dust. I'm working on it. I just am a researcher on the internet about pixie dust. If someday we get to a 3-day work week, we'll be defined by our hobbies and not our jobs. So instead of being a lawyer who games, you'll be a gamer who laws.
Ooh,
it's never going to happen, guys.
I like that.
We said that about the fax machine, and we just
that.
worked more. It will.
I like that. I would like a different work week. Like I'd take a 3-day work week. That'd be dope.
I don't know. That's the thing is like you have to have something to do because if people just had I know you.
I could find something.
You don't struggle with that because you're just always having projects from other people. But
truth.
Like today, weren't you hanging curtains or something? Or is that the other day? Yeah. So, yeah, you would. But some people with a 3-day work week might get themselves into trouble. Here's the deal. If there was a 3-day work week in the military, every single person would be dead by the end of that 4-day weekend. Because when they got 3-day weekends, it was nuts. Like, yeah.
Oh, I got what you're saying.
That too much
I get what
time,
you're saying.
like idle hands and just.
Yeah, there could be
Yeah.
exceptions. There could be exceptions. That's true.
Program
so
the
last
Tesla
shower thought I
bots
have
as a
for y'all.
side gig. Oh, that's a
That would be
throwback.
dope. That would
I
be dope.
know.
Oh my gosh, that'd be
You have
awesome.
another one?
I can't wait for those.
Okay.
Last shower thought.
I have one more.
NFTs are kind of like the Beanie Babies
Yeah,
of
except
Gen Z.
they're more valuable.
I don't know. I never got into the Beanie Baby game. Like I never was like seeing how much they traded for or what the people were selling them for.
Here's
I don't
the
know
thing.
what their
The
values
most
were at that
expensive
time.
NFT I've seen sold live was $1.03 million.
Was that what did Bixby? Beeple, thank you. How much was he sold one for?
Well,
millions,
to get
I
to
think,
millions
too, right?
by a few weeks ago, Ethereum prices, you have to cross 290, I think, 289, somewhere in there. That's a lot. I've seen it happen live. It's wild, but that's
Yeah. So the most expensive NFT Beeple sold was for 69 million.
that's impressive.
That's nuts.
That's nuts.
That's stupid. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's
It was-
crazy.
And you know what? The
69.3
person
million.
did it just for the meme too. That's the thing. And here's what people don't understand is that's Ethereum. Ethereum today is trading for what, 31.50, something like that per token. So that's a lot of millions, or that's a lot of thousands of dollars. But just last year you could buy Ethereum for what, $100, 150.
No, it wasn't 100. It was more than that.
There was a point
year
at
ago?
which when it bottomed out, maybe it wasn't last year, maybe it was 2020. Within the last 2 years,
Might have been
Ethereum was under $400. So some of these people have been like just stacking this stuff, and 69 ETH doesn't mean the same thing to
True.
them anymore. And so
True.
they would do that
True,
just
true,
for
true,
the
true.
lulz, like literally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They could.
Yeah.
They could.
And it-
They can.
Yeah. My grandma has boxes of Beanie Babies. Her
Yeah,
most
so
expensive was
in-
like $210. Yeah, that's it's definitely not definitely not the same.
In March of 2020, it was down to
Yeah. So as I say,
111.
2020. I was last year. I was thinking it was not. We
Yeah.
we just came into 2022. That's what. So, my last shower thought is that dogs teach kids about responsibility. They also teach Curtis patience. Cats teach kids about patience. I don't think cats are good for anything, and boundaries. And fish teach kids about mortality.
Mortality, very true. Very true. Very good point. I love that. Yep, very true. All right, guys. Well, that is what we have for you tonight. And it's been a ride. It's been a wild ride. We
Yep.
appreciate you guys.
It's been fun.
I think we're going to try to stick to the Monday nights, guys. Try to get some consistency here. if
So
we
far,
can,
we're on a streak.
as long as
Two.
my work doesn't hose us. Two, baby.
Yeah, they do, right, Curtis? Wait. Oh,
All right,
the
guys.
dogs. I was thinking fish. I was like, did you get a fish? You did.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
a fish, right?
Yeah. So, really quick story. Something terrible. I'm going to tell you about the fish story real quick. My sister is going to crack up and maybe cry.
This
and
isn't
laugh
your
about
kids
this.
then.
But
Okay.
no, when we were younger, Megan had a fish and I had a fish. We lived in this small little. I think we were in a trailer park at that time. Small little house.
Fish should never
we
be
each
in a
had a
trailer
fish.
park.
Super cool. We couldn't have pets because we didn't have a yard, So we one time we found out that we came home and Megan's fish was dead. So we had to
Ba-dum.
Oh no, sorry.
Okay.
My fish was dead. So we had to flush my fish down the toilet because it was dead. So my parents took me and we showed the fish. We said goodbye, flushed it down the toilet, and then everybody went back to the living room. We were doing what we were doing, and then all of a sudden, my parents hear the toilet flush again, and they're wondering,
No.
Chris, did you just go to the bathroom? And I was like, and then they came and looked, and Megan ran up to her fish tank, and her fish wasn't there anymore. And I had decided it was equitable. If my fish had to go down the toilet, so should her fish have to go down the toilet.
I think
I cruelly flushed
this is a
her live
perfect
fish
example
down the toilet
of what equity
my fish
means
had to.
versus equality.
Yes. It was cruel and it was terrible, and I apologize, Megan, for that to this day. And that fish, coincidentally, I was fishing,
and you caught it
the other day.
It was still out there. And it's like, Curtis,
it had a sign on it. It had a sign on it. Anyways, it tasted delicious. I just want you to know I'm so glad I did what I did. It paid off in the long run. Oh, shoot. All right. Well, guys, we appreciate you. Tom Hanks. Love the reference there, Josh. And we will talk to you guys very soon. Have a safe week.
Guys.
Peace.